Welcome to Connect, a podcast produced by the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Rhyne Owneby, Director of Business Development, and your host. Join us as we share stories from entrepreneurs and community leaders and learn more about what makes Carroll County a great place to live, work, and play. Hi, welcome to Connect. This is Rhyne Owneby. I'm here today with J.R. Charles and Daniel Jackson, and this is our very first podcast, and we're so excited. And today, Daniel is going to chat with us for a little bit, and many of you know Daniel recently announced his retirement, and I don't really know how I feel about that, but we're going to talk to him a little bit today and find out everything he knows in 12 minutes or less. So, Daniel, thanks so much. Thanks for being here.
Hey, it's good to be with you guys, and we've been in this community 48 and a half years. I can't believe it. And obviously after arriving at the decision that it was okay to retire and maybe the time to retire during the holidays, the last 3 weeks plus have been kind of surreal as we've come to realize that. The fun part in arriving at that decision and since then going back and looking at old files and programs of work and records and history books and all of that. It's been really neat to do kind of a travel down memory lane. And I guess the cool part is thinking about all the incredible people who have been volunteers on the chamber board, the executive committees, those who chaired the chamber. And that list of board chairs is just an awesome group. And just thinking back about all the different programs, the activities, the committees and councils, the programs and events. And it's really, it's all about a community, and it's all about leadership in a community who choose to work together to focus on problems or challenges or opportunities and then to do something about it. So it's been a lot of fun, actually, and acknowledging that this community is blessed to have a lot of good resources, a lot of wonderful people, and a lot of good things have happened. And the good news is that's going to be the case in the future. We're in good shape.
Now, how did you get involved with the chamber? I know, you're chamber president now, but this is not your first run with the chamber. You've been involved from the personal volunteer side, right?
So, yeah, as a young guy in the clothing business with a Squire shop, Charles Willis was a great mentor for me, and he's like, look, we need to be involved in the merchant organizations. We need to be involved in civic organizations. We need to be involved in the chamber, and obviously Squire shop was a member. Charles was actually, he chaired the board back in the day. And so I learned from him, and I learned from others that I admired and looked up to, those guys that had the big giant shoes in the community. And I realized that was a place that if you really cared about your community and you cared about your business, you needed to invest time. And eventually I was given the opportunity to serve on the board and then leadership roles. And I guess that total time of chairing a committee, being on the board, going through the officer rotation, chairing the strategic plan was probably a 10 or 12 year process for me as a volunteer. And during those years, I absolutely fell in love with the chamber. I fell in love with chamber leadership and just the realization of what chambers of commerce do for a community and the ability to be a part of that was pretty exciting.
I love to hear that story. So if you could go back and look over the years that you've been at the chamber, what's the one thing that seems to have changed the most since you've been here? The biggest change?
Technology clearly would be the biggest single change. There's always going to be those people in the community who step up and volunteer and give and do. There's always going to be programs. There's going to be things to do. So I would say the game changer has been technology, and that's a positive and a negative because different generations viewed it different. And when you started thinking about communications, how do you communicate with somebody from the old-fashioned paper newsletter to online and all the other things. But even with COVID last year, we learned a lot of lessons about the ability to utilize technology for reaching out more often and in sometimes more effective ways. So I think clearly technology and infusing technology into what we do as a chamber is probably the biggest game changer.
Now, all right. Going from volunteering, you were working on typewriters, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, technology, right? So how when you got from the volunteer side, how did you get to be in the Chamber of Presidents? I don't think people really know that story. How did you get to be in the position you are now? What made that jump?
So 26 years in retail clothing business, and that was the window of time when I was serving on the chamber board as a volunteer. I did a midlife change watching what was happening in the apparel industry. I wasn't real thrilled with that, but I felt like for the benefit of myself and my family. So I wound up doing a 180 and moving from small business retail at the Squire Shop to Carroll EMC. It was a wonderful experience for me. That was like family. I love those guys, and I love the EMC world. That cooperative world is really special. I learned a lot. My assignments included economic development and communications and member service and retail and a lot of things that I had not done before. And it was a growing time for me, but a really unique time. I found myself at the end of that being on the steering committee for when Carroll Tomorrow was being created. And they had chosen 26 leaders in the community to be a part of that steering committee working with Market Street Services. So ironically, I got to be a part of listening and watching and seeing and participating in conversations in this community about our assets and things we needed to work on and what were we going to do about it. And it was kind of a fun, unique role to be in. And little did I know at that point in time that within a couple of years, I would have the chance to transition from the volunteer steering committee side to actually being a part of the Carroll Tomorrow team. So to answer your question specifically, Slater Barr was hired as the president and CEO of Carroll Tomorrow. He came to town. We went to lunch. He said, I'm going to need some help, and you're from the community, and how about you help me do this Carroll Tomorrow thing? And I didn't immediately jump at it because I was enjoying my new life at Carroll EMC. But after a couple of months, we concluded, hey, let's give this thing a try. I believe in what the possibilities are with the Carroll Tomorrow, and so the rest is history. And then fast forward a little bit, the chamber ended up contracting with Carroll Tomorrow to provide management for the chamber. So I found myself full circle in the role of being responsible for the chamber 16 years ago. So it's been a fun journey, an interesting journey. You look back on it and you sort of see how the pieces were put together, but you don't know that looking forward. But certainly nothing but good memories to reflect on.
That's great. For people that don't know, could you give us a kind of the difference between Carroll Tomorrow and the Chamber? That gets a little confusing for some folks sometimes, and just tell us what the difference is and how the two function together.
Sure. So, chambers have been around since the 1600s. It's a membership organization. Chambers are much more engaging in terms of using the membership to participate through committees, through councils. The board is a large board, all volunteers, the officers are all large. And so the chamber is going to be that face and voice of a community, but it's going to be much more engaging the membership in the process. Carroll Tomorrow is a little bit more at a 40,000 level. It's a more strategic. There's probably less people involved. It's probably more staff-driven, more sophisticated in terms of how to do economic development, strategic planning, relying on some partners outside of local at the state or even national level. So the two complement each other well, but Chamber's going to be the membership side of the house, serving the businesses and the community that's already here. Carroll Tomorrow is a little more global, planning out the future, more vision in terms of what the community needs to look like in education, healthcare, infrastructure, those kinds of things.
Thank you so much. I know a lot of people wonder what the difference between the two are, so I hope that clears that up for folks. And I know we're getting ready to go into another 5-year strategic plan for Carroll Tomorrow. Can you tell us something about that and explain some of that, please?
Sure can, and I'll tell you, we're very excited. We found a firm in Atlanta that we've known about for a while, and they came in and did all during the end of summer going into fall. They did a significant amount of research, analytics on our community, comparing us to other peer communities in the state. At the national level, over 1,000 citizens in this community participated in a survey. So it was really a neat process as an outside group came and did all the assessment, the analytics. We sometimes jokingly call it the good, the bad, and the ugly of our community. But having had 20 years of experience in Carroll Tomorrow and knowing what's occurred, and then to have another firm come in and sort of assess where we are now, I think that helped us to get a clear vision for what we want to do going forward. So the excitement is now that the steering committee and the Carroll Tomorrow board has approved a plan for the next 5 years, and we're excited about what that plan is going to entail, what the focuses will be, and we believe that that'll generate the same successes for the next 5 years that we've enjoyed for the last 20 years.
Give everybody an idea of like what goes into this assessment. Like, this isn't just calling up people and saying, where do you think we ought to go? How are you feeling? Like, it's much more in depth, right?
Yeah, the PowerPoint slides when he presented his findings was well over 100, but we're talking deeper dives into infrastructure, into education, into community health, community safety, leadership, governance, all of those kind of things. And the analytics literally compare all of these things and other things to these other communities. And so it's a deep dive, and it's not that we get to alter those numbers. It is what it is. And so by having somebody objectively look at that, they can sit down and say, here's some things you guys are really strong on, such as education, such as quality of life. Here's some things perhaps you need to work on, maybe in infrastructure or trying to get broadband to underserved or unserved areas, those kind of things. So it really helps us as a community, and it helps community leaders to take a look at this and see how we stack up, where the opportunities are, where perhaps there's some weaknesses, or where there's some things that we can be very happy about, celebrate, and communicate with others, things we should promote on behalf of our community.
Yeah, I can tell you, I mean, I was with you shoulder to shoulder helping drive that thing. And the first phase of that assessment was talking just to our Carroll Tomorrow and Carroll Chamber leaders, finding out what their sentiments are. And then there was a survey that was sent out that a lot of people in the community got to participate in. We had 1,200 people that participated. So that's 1% of Carroll County's population that participated in the survey, which sounds small, but from a statistical standpoint, that's actually a big sampling size from that one. And then once that was all done, there was another round of interviews done among community leaders, a good 25 or 40 people that were assessed. So a lot of effort, a lot of opinions, a lot of points of view went into this strategic planning process. And so now we're kind of stepping beyond that first plan, right? And we're going into this tactical assessment now. And that's where the rubber meets the road about where people want to really focus the efforts at Carroll Tomorrow. So for those who haven't been on board with something like this, it's a lot of fun because you get to see a lot of really cool data, but it is a lot of work.
It is, and here's the cool thing. Again, we've talked about Carroll Tomorrow is almost 20 years old. Staff started April 1st, 2001, so it'll be 20 years ago. So we've got 20 years of history and 20 years of knowledge and information and the previous plans. The firms that we're working with work with not only communities in our state, but all over the USA. So you've got professionals who do this all over the USA for all different size communities. And so it gives us the ability, working with them, for them to come to us and say, here's some things we're seeing, best practices in other parts of the state or other parts of the country for that matter. Here's some things that seem to be working, not working. Here's some trends. We talked about technology. The conversation, how do you create that sense of place? What do you do to keep your children staying in the community once they go off to school and return home, and how you want to create an opportunity for them? What do you do for quality of life, for all of those things? So the beauty we have is, one, we got a track record in history. We've got all this analytics and data that tells us kind of how we stack up, but we also have these outside resources that are going to help us to put a plan in place that'll allow this community to determine where we want to go and what we need to do in order to get there. So it's really exciting.
It is exciting. I've enjoyed listening and hearing all of the things that you guys are planning and the things that we've heard from the community. I'm going to kind of switch gears just a little bit, and I think everybody can agree this has been a tough year. It's been a really tough year, and we've learned a lot about ourselves here at the Chamber, a lot about our community, and I think it speaks so much to the strength of our community that we can come off of such a tough year and move into this planning process with so much positivity and so much hope for the future. And I don't know, JR, you probably will join me in thanking you for the leadership that you've shown for all these years in the community, but from my vantage point for the last year has been amazing. I don't know how we as an organization would have made it had it not been for your leadership. And there were some scary days in here. Some of those days when we were in the midst of this, not knowing which way was up. And I like your story of likening it to a battlefield when we were. I think so many times about the light shaking, and but we made it. We've come out. We're not completely out of this, but we're stronger as an organization and as a community. And I thank you for what you've done. And what are you and Carroll going to do now that you're at home? On a lighter note, what are you guys going to do?
Let me say one thing. People that know me know I jokingly talk about gray hair and scar tissue, but I will say, I remember early on saying, we've been through hard times before, 9/11, through the great economic crash. We've had weather events. We've been through a lot of stuff, and so we know that this community has the capacity, even when there's some really tough curveballs thrown our way, to handle that. And so kudos to our staff here, kudos to the board, executive committees, and just community leaders in general who, and you're right, last year was a miserable year, maybe the worst of my entire professional career, and yet we came through it. We learned some lessons from it. So all of that said, when you put everything in perspective, the realization is we only get one shot at this life. You want to try to seek what is it you were intended to do, created to do, gifted to do. And for reflecting back, I feel good about that. Thinking ahead, obviously, as you get to this point in life, you're thinking about trying to maintain your own health. You talk about enjoying family. We've got some family overseas that we're trying to get home and spend time with, and we've got aging family and that kind of thing. So clearly we're not going to walk away from volunteer opportunities. We'll continue to do that. We'll have a little more free time to enjoy each other and travel a little bit. But we're absolutely going to continue to be plugged into the community and be available for advice if anybody wants our advice. But, it's an exciting time. And again, I think really at the end of the day, all of us want to say, I want to do the best I can to give back, to utilize whatever I've been skilled or gifted to do. And that's kind of what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for at this point is I want to continue to be useful and available to plug into the community and at the same time enjoy life. So looking forward to it.
Let me tell you, useful and available, you're on speed dial, buddy. You're not going to get very far. I'm just having a phone call to see what's going on, how you can help us. I'll just say that from the Carroll Tomorrow standpoint.
Well, it's hard to walk away after 48 and a half years of being employed in the community. You can't just cold turkey shut that off, So I know I'll have to work on that mentally and emotionally. But honestly, I don't want to walk away. And there's so many relationships, there's so many friendships, there's so many connector points between civic and faith-based and business and government and healthcare and all of us who love this community and are plugged in. That's why we choose to live here. That's why we appreciate it. And I don't think anybody wants to abandon that, whether we're employed or retired or what, because that's really what makes us who we are, and that's what gives us the motivation to get up and put a smile on our face and want to go do something positive every day.
Great. Daniel, thank you so much for our very first podcast. Yay. We are super excited. We've been talking about this for months. So thank you for being here and for allowing us to come up with these crazy ideas and move forward with it. I wish you all could see our studio. It's pretty sad, but it'll get better. Yeah. We're going to do some video and have some great guests, and I'm sure Daniel will come back and talk to us some more and maybe fill us in on pickleball tournaments or kayaking or something really fun. But J.R., You got anything else?
No, I'm just glad to host this podcast with you, Ryan. This is going to be a lot of fun, and you're right. Like our studio right now is bare, and we're going to change that because eventually we're going to have some video capacity. And so you'll see Ryan, you'll see me, you'll see our guest. But for this audio version, I hope that y'all will enjoy this. Make it a community resource. We want it to be something that you, number one, get something out of, like entertainment, information, but also it's something relatable that the community can really build upon.
Absolutely. Daniel, any final words?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here smiling because I'm loving seeing the energy with you two. And again, going back to lessons learned from COVID last year, being able to incorporate some new ideas, some new technology, some new equipment here. And I think it's going to be a fun year as we begin to find some additional ways to reach out and touch and communicate with our members and our community. And this is fun to be a part of, but what a delight. Thank you all. Good work.
Thanks so much. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week, if not sooner. We may be back sooner, who knows. But in the meantime, remember to connect with your friends and neighbors and stay connected in the community. And we will be back to bring you some more fun stuff in a few days.
Take care, everybody.
See ya. Bye.